What's up, guys? We got a brand new card coming out in Duelist Nexus, and it's kind of a mixed feedback for most Yu-Gi-Oh players. Some players are saying this card is really going to make the deck, and other players think this card is absolutely terrible. Now, it can be used in all archetypes. It's not just for Vaylantz, but let's check it out. It's coming out in Duelist Nexus, called Vaylantz Wave Master Phase. So it's a continuous trap card that says, once per turn, if a card in the monster zone moves to another monster zone, you can activate one of these effects. So basically, most archetypes can maybe use this if they text something in, or if their archetype lets them kind of move certain cards. And Vaylantz is an archetype where there's a lot of like columns and stuff going on. So first off, it says all level 5 or level 5 or higher Vaylantz monsters you currently control gain 1200 attack until the end of this turn. So small little buff. Looking at the Vaylantz in terms of their numbers, they're not like bad for the stats. Most of them are like relatively decent. It's like a penned archetype, but that effect can definitely be decent, and especially since you can maybe as a quick effect activate that effect when they attack. Since none of the monsters are actually changing in terms of numbers, you might actually be able to surprise your opponent with that first effect. Now, the real effect is really the second effect that becomes really good or bad depending on the way you look at it. So it says, send this face-up card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard, then target one effect monster in your opponent's main monster zone. Place that opponent's monster face-up as a continuous spell in their spell and trap zone in its same column. If the zone is occupied, you get to destroy the occupying card. So at the end of the day, that's pretty good. I mean, you are using one card, you get rid of your opponent's card, and it doesn't destroy, it doesn't send it to the graveyard, it just places it as a continuous spell. So that's probably one of the best effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! With the exception of maybe sending it back into the deck. That's a really good effect because they can't get any benefit off of it being in the graveyard, because the graveyard is basically your secondary hand in modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, right? And so that effect is really good. But then on top of that, if they happen to have something, you get to get rid of it as well. So that's how you would essentially go plus with the card. And unfortunately, you do have to send this face-up card. Now, if this was like a once per turn and you did not have to send this, you can keep on using its effect like once per turn. It is not a hard once per turn. It doesn't say you can only activate one of these effects of this card's name, but you can only activate one of these effects. So I think the card would have a lot more potential if it didn't send this card. And therefore, I would say, yeah, the card would be really good if it didn't have that. Now, are other archetypes going to be using this? Sure, there are other archetypes where you can move cards, but the problem is it going to be consistent to run? I don't know. Isn't there like there's a Dragon Link card that like lets you like move to a different zone for Dragon Link? But I was looking at the rest of the Vaylantz archetype, and if you guys haven't seen the Vaylantz, they're kind of underwhelming. They're not really powerful. They have a lot of different card effects where you can banish it, target something, and move it to an adjacent horizontal monster zone. So you can move around your cards a lot in the archetype. In fact, most of the pen stuff lets you special summon a card into the same column, and they are basically a column archetype. Now, the problem is that if you're playing a deck like this, usually, turn one, you're going to be completing your pen scale, and then you're going to be like, oh, I'm setting a face down, and then so your opponent will simply just play around that mechanic of keeping cards in the same column. Now, the thing is that maybe if they get some other bonus effects, if your opponent doesn't have the cards in the same column, then your opponent then wants to play cards in the same column due to that. But they also have a bunch of monster effects, and a lot of them are like you get to target one face-up card in either spell and trap zone, and you can bounce them back to the hand. So if you want to, with the archetype, it does allow you to potentially put your opponent's card back in the spell and trap zone, then you can just bounce it back to their hand. Unless you're playing Crystal Beast, usually putting their monster in the back row, it could clog up the board. I mean, are you going to be able to straight up be like a cash tier deck and be like, all right, I'm locking out all your zones, I'm filling out your monsters, your monster zone, and I'm putting them back in the spell and trap? If you could successfully do this, there are really crazy plays in Yu-Gi-Oh! This is where I'm like, okay, this is theory crafting with some, real big brain plays. If you could potentially do this, this would actually be kind of interesting. Now, I'm curious to see if the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community can do this. So, House Dust and how this card works, if it's just if it's face up on the field and it's destroyed by opponent's card by battle or face up at the start of damage step, you get to special summon any number of Dust Stuns from your hand or your deck anywhere on the field, but you must special summon equal amount of monsters on each side. So if I was to, let's say, go for max monsters, which obviously more likely one of the monsters will attack into House Dust, and at least your opponent's monster board would then be clogged with 5, right? If you could somehow get all of these effects, like these have this effect for this newer card, right? The Master Phase, the Continuous Trap, but some of the other cards in the archetype let you take a monster in the main monster zone. I think it's this one over here. You move it to an adjacent a horizontal monster zone, but there's another one where you get to like place it in the back for the Vaylantz archetype. Basically, if you can get this effect off, you pull off the House Dozen, you move all of their monsters to the spell and trap zone, and then they cannot play spells and traps, which would be hilarious. And at that point, yeah, you could have like a Cash Tour like lockdown where they can't play anything. But is it realistic? Probably not. So what do you guys think of Vaylantz Wave Master Phase? Do you guys think the card is good? Do you think it's bad? Let me know your thoughts down below. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you want to see more new Yu-Gi-Oh cards, it's first time here, subscribe, turn that bell notification, and I'll see you in the next one. Some more new Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Peace out.